Haribo. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Anjaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Anjaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Mr. Bhagavad Paramahamsa, Bhagavadgitaclass, Ashtottara Dharshi Srimad Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki Jai. ISKCON BBT founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnu Pad Paramahamsa, Bhagavadgitaclass, Ashtottara Dharshi Srimad Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavini ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki Jai. Samveda Bhaktivinoda ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Dhammanak Mahaprabhu. You can open that door a little bit. I'm sorry I closed it, but it should be maybe a foot. Perfect. Thank you. Where's Jamal? Is he out? Oh, good. You didn't go to pick up the boys? Later. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 12th day of September 2018 in SanDiego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in the 18th chapter, entitled The Perfection of Renunciation, text number 47, bottom of page 688. I'm going to wait till you're ready. We need all voices on deck. 688. Ready? Okay. Shreyan swadharmo vigunah paradharmat swanushchitat sabhava niyatam karma kurvanapnoti kilbisham. Shreyan swadharmo vigunah paradharmat swanushchitat sabhava niyatam karma kurvanapnoti kilbisham. Shreyan swadharmo viguna paradharmat swanushtitat svabhavaniyatam karma kurvanapnoti kilbisham. Shreyan swadharmo vigunah paradharmat swanushtitat svabhavaniyatam karma turvanapnoti kilbisham. Shreyan swadharmo vigunah paradharmat swanushtitat svabhavaniyatam karma kurvanapnoti kilbisham. Shreyan, better, swadharmaha, one's own occupation, vigunaha, imperfectly performed, paradharmat, than another's occupation, su anushtitat, perfectly done, svabhavaniyatam, prescribed according to one's nature, karma, work, kurvan, performing, na, never, apnoti, achieves, kilbisham, sinful reactions. Translation. It is better to engage in one's own occupation, even though one may perform it imperfectly, than to accept another's occupation and perform it perfectly. Duties prescribed according to one's nature are never affected by sinful reactions. Purport. One's occupational duty is prescribed in the Bhagavad Gita. As already discussed in previous verses, the duties of a Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra are prescribed according to their particular modes of nature. One should not imitate another's duty. A man who is by nature attracted to the kind of work done by Shudras should not artificially claim to be a Brahmin, although he may have been born into a Brahmin family. In this way, one should work according to his own nature. No work is abominable if performed in the service of the Supreme Lord. The occupational duty of a Brahmin is certainly in the mode of goodness, but if a person is not by nature in the mode of goodness, he should not imitate the occupational duty of a Brahmin. For a Kshatriya or administrator, there are so many abominable things. A Kshatriya has to be violent to kill his enemies, and sometimes a Kshatriya has to tell lies for the sake of diplomacy. Such violence and duplicity accompany political affairs, but a Kshatriya is not supposed to give up his occupational duty and try to perform the duties of a Brahmin. One should act to satisfy the Supreme Lord. For example, Arjuna was a Kshatriya. He was hesitating to fight the other party. But if such fighting is performed for the sake of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there need be no fear of degradation. In the business field also, sometimes a merchant has to tell so many lies to make a profit. If he does not do so, there can be no profit. Sometimes a merchant says, "Oh, my dear customer, for you I am making no profit." But one should know that without profit, the merchant cannot exist. Therefore, it should be taken as a simple lie if a merchant says that he is not making a profit. But the merchant should not think that because he is engaged in an occupation in which the telling of lies is compulsory, he should give up his profession and pursue the profession of a Brahmin. That is not recommended. Whether one is a Kshatriya, a Vaishya, or a Shudra doesn't matter, if he serves by his work the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Even Brahmins who perform different types of sacrifice sometimes kill animals because sometimes animals are sacrificed in such ceremonies. Similarly, if a Kshatriya engaged in his own occupation kills an enemy, there is no sin incurred. In the 3rd chapter, these matters have been clearly and elaborately explained. Every man should work for the purpose of yajna, or for Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Anything done for personal sense gratification is a cause of bondage. The conclusion is that everyone should be engaged according to the particular mode of nature he has acquired, and he should decide to work only to serve the supreme cause of the Supreme Lord. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. Dravida Prabhu. Can you go in the back and make sure that the door is closed, and also the door to the altar, and also the door to the kitchen? They will have maximum quiet, as quiet as they can get. Okay. So this verse, Krishna is talking about swadharma. And swadharma is specifically, as I mentioned in previous verses, that activity that's most suitable or suited to the mode of nature that you're born into, and that is your natural state. Someone who is of moderate intelligence, who's born into a family of bicycle repairmen or something, you know. He may be trained in that, and that's his natural duty. Now, if he does that and gives as much of the fruit over to Krishna as possible, then he's nicely situated. The whole idea is that is in Krishna consciousness to be engaged in a certain activity that you can perform, and to do that in Krishna consciousness and make that your way in which you serve Krishna. If you're trying to be something you're not for some reason, and you're not peaceful in your activity, then it's hard to peacefully engage in Krishna consciousness. There's a kind of disturbance. So this is by way of Krishna saying that it really doesn't matter what you're doing, as long as it's connected to me. Because that, remember the previous verse that led to this, Yatak Pravritti Bhutanam, text 46, by worship of the Lord, a person can attain perfection by performing his own work when he works for the Lord. In other words, the word Lord is the enjoyer of the fruit. That Lord being the source of all beings, who is all-pervading. So the idea is that for Krishna consciousness to really be dominant in society, and to have a society with Krishna in the center, then it requires this principle of varnashram dharma, and people to be engaged properly in their activities. That's the ideal society. And so this verse is simply saying that don't be envious of what someone else is doing, and try to leave your own dharma for that. You know, be engaged according to your proper way, and do it for Krishna, and that'll be perfection. That's the idea here. All right, let's go on. Go ahead. Yes, bro. Yeah. Varna Sankara, yeah. And come back and clean the bathroom. There is that principle also. In the highly refined, you know, this is that kind of special environment. There's only like a handful of people really. Even if you expand usually, and there's temples everywhere, it'll still only be very few people who can just throw up their hands and become fully engaged 24 hours in devotional service. So Prabhupada was always concerned, well, how can society as a whole be organized? If we have a big farm community, even on the farm community, you need Brahmins who are going to do the puja, and you need, you know, people to manage, right? And so the idea is that in that kind of an environment where you have a big society or many, many devotees, then people need to be engaged according to their propensity. There's still the overarching principle in devotional service. If you're engaging in full-on devotional service, and you're part of a spiritual organization, such as Krishna Conscious Society, where there's the principle of doing the needful. I like to describe the story in this regard of where in the early 80s I lived in Philadelphia. I was working with Back to Godhead magazine, and we had a little house about a mile from the Philadelphia temple. And in the winter it gets pretty cold in Philadelphia, so we had to have a way of heating that house. And the cheapest way to do it, you've heard this story, is to have a coal stove in the basement and have the hot air kind of permeate the house. So that means that, okay, they're going to have coal delivery. Someone's going to empty the coal stove, and it's Shudra work. But we had all Brahmins living in there, and we had Jayadvaita Swami, and we had editors and all kinds of people. So everyone had to take their turn, and Maharaj would go down there, and you get and do the coal and everything. So at the same time, we'd have guests periodically, and so Maharaj met this one fellow. He was a nice Indian Brahmin, and we invited him to stay over for the weekend. Yeah, have a seat. Is that yours, bro? Just pull it over. Hare Krishna. Welcome. We are on page 690. We're going to read that text. And so it was winter time, and we wanted him to take his turn. And he refused. He said, I'm a Brahmin. I don't, He had not picked up the idea that in Krishna consciousness, whatever is necessary, do the needful, Now, interestingly enough, in the Bhagavad Gita, we have the the phenomenon where Arjuna is refusing to do what he's most suited to do, which is fight. Right? He wants to be a Brahman sannyasi and renounce everything. So it's not suited for him. That's on one level. So he has to surrender to actually do what he's most suited to do, which means also he's going to have to kill his dear grandfather, Bhishma, and Dronacharya's teacher, like that. So, but that's kind of a part of the subtle element here. Text 47 we just read, page 40. Yeah, 690. Yeah, we're going to read 48 in a couple of minutes. So Krishna is saying, don't leave your Swadharma here. Your Swadharma is what I want you to do, which is, fight in his battle. Even if you become a perfect sannyasi, it'll be imperfect because it's not what I want you to do, and plus it's not your character to do that. So previously, he said somehow or other you're going to fight. You'll go out in the forest, but you'll be fighting with the just like they were exiled in the forest, and Bhima had a big fight with a Dimba. You remember that? There's still plenty of fighting to do out there. So that's the idea here, and you're right in the sense, when you become a brahmachari, classically you're a king's son or you're a brahmin son, you still do menial service. The whole idea is to become a menial servant of the guru. And so Krishna himself was asked to go and fetch wood in the forest with Sudama Brahman. Well, how is that Brahminical activity? Well, it's the training period, until they get. Okay, yeah, bro. Well, the idea is that you're leaving your post, if it's really your Swadharma, that means that it is suited to you. But you may have some facility to perform like part of the other service better. The whole idea is that if everybody is always trying to jockey for position, I think I can do this better, and maybe you can for a little while, but you're leaving the post itself as a disturbance in society. So the principle, just like in a little tightly knit, temple like this, it's much more important to just do your duty, even though you feel that I could really do something much better, because the principle of like keeping, following instructions and keeping a peaceful atmosphere is overriding, and because devotees, this is why Prabhupada wasn't happy to hear devotees going, flitting from temple to temple. This would happen, is that, oh yeah, I heard it's really happening in this temple, that temple. But the overarching point is that Prabhupada wants every place to develop. So you're sitting in the Tucson temple, say, just was opened up back in 1976 or something, as possible. So there's only 3 devotees here, but you hear about, New Dwarka, there's 100 devotees there, I could really become more Krishna conscious there. But the idea is, the overarching principle is to please Srila Prabhupada. He wants you to stick to the post and build up that center. So that's what's talking about here. Now, there's another dimension to this, which I can't help bringing up, and that is that in the Srimad Bhagavatam, when Narada Muni is speaking to Vyasadeva in chapter 5, he's giving him the inspiration to write the Bhagavatam. It's a very essential chapter. Prabhu would quote these verses all the time. So Narada Muni is trying to convince Vyasadeva, in an extreme sense, he just wasted all his time writing all these other literatures beside the Bhagavatam. That's why you're not happy. That's why you're not peaceful, because those literatures did not wholly and solely glorify devotional service and Krishna and his incarnations. You understand? So by way of proving that, he's saying that he's saying that he starts out with this Nayad Vichachitta Badanghareyasho. Whatever you wrote that doesn't glorify Krishna directly, even though it may give you instructions how to achieve the heavenly planets or do this or do that, but it's like a pilgrimage of crows, even though it may be very nicely written. But even if imperfectly written, even if every verse is imperfectly written, but it glorifies Krishna, then that vibration is heard and chanted and repeated by the learned sages. So he's saying, he's trying to give the all-important, highest importance to glorification of Krishna, and that you should write a book that has only that in it. He's getting him to write Bhagavatam. Now, in the course of doing that, he talks about Swadharma here. And one of the verses is, Chakva Swadharma, Chadanam Bhajangharo, Bhajan Apakvo Tapate Tatohidi, Yatra Kavabadhana Buddha Mushikim Kovarta Apto Abhajatam Swadharmataha. Now, the word Swadharma appears twice in that verse. He begins by saying, if someone gives up his Swadharma, which is what Krishna says you shouldn't do, right here, right? So here he seems to have a contradiction, but we don't. Because if someone gives up his Swadharma, right? I mean, he quits his job as a Vaishya. He leaves the farm, where it's just a regular farm, but he's a farmer, and he likes to do it. He gives that up, and he joins the temple, or an ashram, right? That's what he's saying. You give up Chaktva, Swadharma, and you take full shelter of the lotus feet of Hari. Chadanam Bhajang Hare Bhajan. But you don't complete the course. You get restless and you leave and you go back to the farm. He says, where is there any loss? You may have given up your Swadharma for some time and taken to full Krishna consciousness, but that's to your eternal credit. On the other hand, someone who sticks nicely to his Swadharma, but doesn't worship Krishna at all, where is there any gain? You see? So there seems to be a contradiction. Because Narada Muni is saying to Vyasadeva, better to give up your Swadharma, which Krishna says you shouldn't do, and but the key is to take completely to the worship of Krishna. So this is the and then the next verse, which Prabhupada would quote also, Tasyaiva heto prayateta kovido, that one should strive in this life for that which you cannot achieve from going from Brahma Loka down to Patala Loka. In other words, don't get absorbed and hung up in some material goals, because your material aspirations in this lifetime will bring you back again to another material body. You can never really fulfill them. You're trying to be happy and peaceful for eternity. Now, how can you do that in this life? The greatest aspiration in the world. You can't do it on the material plane. So he's Chakva Swadharman. No, he says, Tasyaiva heto prayateta kovido. The intelligent person, the kavida, should strive, prayateta, as hard as possible, to attain that which you can't get in this material world. In other words, go back to Godhead. Try to do it as much as possible. Even if you fail, you succeed, because that percentage is where you begin next life. But whatever you achieve in this world, even going to Brahma Loka, is destroyed when you die, when the universe dies. Like that. So this is the whole basis of the Bhagavatam. It's giving us access to a way of life that is leading us along the path to the ultimate good. Even if we don't succeed in this lifetime, it's a success to strive as hard as possible. So here, there's two different contexts here. Narada is speaking from the absolute ultimate platform, and Krishna is saying in society as a whole, when there's only a small percentage of people who are going to go for broke and give up everything for Krishna, but the people will ideally integrate Krishna consciousness into their daily lives, and hopefully make some progress First of all, society would be very peaceful. With Krishna in the center, and everyone will be moving along in the right direction. So he's speaking about that in the 47. But in a few verses, he's going to go to the absolute, to the ultimate, guyatamam, most confidential, instruction, which is no secret. Think of Krishna, worship him, surrender to him, and work for him. Exactly what we're doing, which is open secret. All right, let's go on. Yeah. Yeah. It's very rare. Yeah, the idea is that you find someone with a little spark, and then you try to fan it. You're not going to find who says, "Oh, this is what I've been looking for. Well, where's the ashram?" It's pretty rare. You used to find that in the 60s and 70s because you had people. Yes, the potency with someone who's actually on that pure platform can transform someone's life in an instant like that. But that's why we're giving Prabhupada. When you give those books out, you're giving them association of Prabhupada. So it's a long-term project. You look in the beginning of these books, and they tell how many printings there have been. There've been millions of these Bhagavad Gitas, especially the softback that were distributed just in the last 5 years. A couple of million. Where do they end up? Where who knows? How were they read? Maybe they're sitting in shelves. But that was Prabhupada's program. It's like Johnny Appleseed. You ever hear Johnny Appleseed? He was kind of a sannyasi. I read his life. You know that? He was, I think, from Rhode Island or something. He was from the Northeast. And I think his wife died or something. And he got this idea, well, I'm going to do whatever, with a good project. And he put on some saddlebags or whatever he had, and filled them full of apple seeds. He started wandering. He went to northern New York State. And he just started throwing these apple seeds out, into the fields wherever he was. And a certain percentage of them, most of them died, but some of them actually germinated. And that's why in northern New York State you've got some of the more apple orchards. Same thing with Northwest. I don't know if he got over there, but he was and it's even mentioned in the Gita how one of the best acts of charity, material charity, is planting trees, fruit trees like that. So, but it's like that. The seeds are going out everywhere, and a few germinate, in the fertile hearts of the receptive soul. Let's go on. Text 48. Sahajam karma kaunteya sadosham apinat chajet sararamba hidoshena dumain agnir ivavrataha. Every endeavor is covered by some fault, just as fire is covered by smoke. Therefore one should not give up the work born of his nature, O son of Kunti, even if such work is full of fault. Purport. In conditioned life, all work is contaminated by the material modes of nature. Even if one is a Brahmin, he has to perform sacrifices in which animal killing is necessary. Similarly, a Kshatriya, however pious he may be, has to fight enemies. He cannot avoid it. Similarly, a merchant, however pious he may be, must sometimes hide his profit to stay in business, or he may sometimes happen to do business on the black market. These things are necessary. One cannot avoid them. Similarly, even though a man is a Shudra serving a bad master, he has to carry out the order of the master, even though it should not be done. Despite these flaws, one should continue to carry out his prescribed duties, for they are born out of his own nature. A very nice example is given herein. Although fire is pure, still there is smoke. Yet smoke does not make the fire impure. Even though there is smoke in the fire, fire is still considered to be the purest of all elements. If one prefers to give up the work of a Kshatriya and take up the occupation of a Brahmin, he is not assured that in the occupation of a Brahmin there are no unpleasant duties. One may then conclude that in the material world no one can be completely free from the contamination of material nature. This example of fire and smoke is very appropriate in this connection. When in wintertime one takes a stone from the fire, sometimes smoke disturbs the eyes and other parts of the body, but still one must make use of the fire despite disturbing conditions. Similarly, one should not give up his natural occupation because there are some disturbing elements. Rather, one should be determined to serve the Supreme Lord by his occupational duty in Krishna consciousness. That is the perfectional point. When a particular type of occupation is performed for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord, all the defects in that particular occupation are purified. When the results of work are purified, when connected with devotional service, one becomes perfect in seeing the self within, and that is self-realization. So this is what generally you find is that even in Krishna consciousness you're doing something, and there are so many frustrations at the beginning. You know, the material energy is like that. You know, it just puts impediments in your way. You know, you try, and you get meager results. But you find that in Krishna consciousness, the special thing is that the effort alone, if you're really sincere, then that is success. The effort alone. Just like Prabhupada is known, he started the League of Devotees in Jhansi in the 50s, some early 50s or something. And he put his whole heart into it. You know, he had this place, it was, and he was preaching in English, and he was organizing Sankirtan parties and all this, and making members and everything like that. But then it failed. The building was taken away from him. It was given by the governor to some other person. You know. And so, Hare Krishna. Please, we have seats. Make sure. Cushions? That's it. Yeah, mats. Take some mats. You want to set him up with some books? See if you can give him some books. We have So Prabhupada, you know, he had to give that up. But he didn't give up the idea or the desire to fulfill the mission of his spiritual master. So, yeah, you can. Yeah, well, she can. That's okay. Yeah, good. So somehow he found a way to continue the mission. He kept, you know, printing Back to Godhead magazine when he could, and he was inspired to write these books, and just the writing and publishing of the first three volumes of the first canon was practically an impossible feat. But he was determined to overcome the difficulties. So all throughout that period of his life, he was encouraged from within by the idea that, well, he's doing his best to fulfill the mission of a spiritual master. Whereas on the material plane, someone would have never even attempted it. This is, page 690. So this is the unique factor of work in Krishna consciousness, is that the effort alone, if one is sincere, is seen by Krishna, and one is given inspiration to continue. And he gives the intelligence by which you can succeed. Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogatam yena mamapi yantite. There's a famous verse from the 10th chapter, 10:10, I believe. And Krishna says, to those who are always engaged in my devotional service, satata yuktanam bhajatam, with love and devotion, I give the intelligence by which they can come to me. I give the intelligence by which they can serve me better and better. And so that's what's being mentioned here. Every endeavor, especially at the beginning, is covered by some fault. But don't give it up. Don't become discouraged. You know, rather pray to Krishna and continue your service, that after some time it'll become refined. It's like these artists. You know, each of these paintings reflects so much skill. But I knew the artists when they weren't so skilled. I go way back to the early 70s. When I joined where all the artists were, in Henry Street, Brooklyn, 1973. Now, by that time, they were pretty good, but they got better and better. And I know from the history that some of them, when they started, their paintings were pretty crude. But Prabhupada encouraged them. Oh, thank you. You painted this picture of Krishna, the Panchatattva. Put it on the altar, you know, because he saw the sincerity and the devotion in it. I'll tell you a story. At one point in ISKCON, book distribution was a little put in the background, And temples were selling cheap paintings, Korean paintings, of like waterfalls and things that people would put on their walls for this decoration in houses. They would go traveling everywhere. You know the history. So someone had the idea, well, we have all these artists working in Korea and everything. Why don't we get them to paint Krishna? We'll put Krishna on the wall of the temple. So I remember the painting. There was one. This was in Philadelphia again. This was like 81 or something, 1981. And there suddenly appeared this painting of Krishna standing, something like this, the threefold bending form. He had all the elements there. And I said, wait a minute, that's where did that come from? And you could see it didn't have a drop of devotion. There was no devotion. It was just paint by the numbers, It didn't have, what the essence of the artist, which is that there's a devotion in it. And this is even more amazing. And so they took it off the wall. A friend of mine, now some of you are familiar with some of the paintings. I mean, I could pull it out here if I had a little time, but there's a painting of Krishna that's practically my favorite painting of all. This little baby Krishna with his hand in the yogurt pot, and it's very fine. It looks like Rembrandt or something, and he's looking right at you like this. And what it is a painting of, when you read Krishna Lila, is that Krishna is very mischievous. Right, so we get into all the houses of the ladies and steal the yogurt, And so they came to Yashoda to complain about Krishna. There's famous verses. There's 3 verses of complaints. I memorized them once, but I won't burden you with the Sanskrit. So they're saying, this boy has to be chastised. You have to put him under control. He comes into our storerooms, and he somehow or other he's wearing these ornaments, and his own body is a fault, and he's lighting up the thing, and he stacks up the planks of wood on the alukala, the grinding mortar, and she gets up there, and he pokes a hole in our pots, and he steals the yogurt, and then when we catch him, he runs away and he feeds it to the monkeys. And after the monkeys get full and he complains, even the monkeys won't eat it, and he throws it on the ground. And they keep complaining like this. But then they're watching him, and then I wrote a little poem about it. It said, Yashoda's friends approached her and complained about her naughty child, the butter thief. Oh friend, this child of yours must be restrained. He simply torments us with no relief. We trust that you will thoroughly chastise this naughty boy who steals and eats our food. But then he looked at them with love-filled eyes, awakening their sweet maternal mood. And so Yashoda and her friends were drowned in waves and whirlpools of maternal love. The blessings they achieved are never won by gods and goddesses who dwell above, or something like that. So this painting was done by a devotee named Muralidhar, who was expert painter when he joined the movement and became even more expert. His paintings, let's see, do we have a Muralidhar in here? Yes, that's one of his most famous paintings, this one, which is actually very large. This was done in New Vrindavan over quite a period of time. And it's big. It's like, it would fill up that space in one of these things if it was actually on the wall. And so, very skilled, if you study that, how he got the marble and all the thing, and the devotion. So, at a certain point, Dravida Prabhu, he had kind of trouble with his spiritual life, and he left the movement, unfortunately. This is the ends of the 80s, early 80s. So, a friend of mine, he was living up in Encinitas, and actually Muralidhar lived up there for a long time. And he started his own painting thing. He has a website. You can see the same skill is there, but it's not Krishna paintings anymore. So, at a certain point, he thought, well, this painting is so popular. The original had been sold for like $5,000. It's sitting in Bombay somewhere, in someone's house. So he said, well, I'll paint another one like that, and maybe, sell it and make some money. So the same devotee, who was now no longer in the fire of Krishna consciousness, he painted the same painting, but it wasn't the same. There's something missing there. And you can see it. It's sitting on my friend's wall. He tried to sell it, but no one would buy it. It's been sitting on that wall for 20 years. So the point is that it's the genuine devotion that Krishna sees. And here's another, just to finish with the painting analogies. when Prabhupada would go to the school, sometimes Dallas, or when we had these big gurukuls, devotee, the little kids would draw pictures for him of Krishna and give it to him. A kid's painting, it's always heartwarming. So the story is that Prabhupada, we go to Dallas, then he gets on a plane, he's going somewhere else. So he's sitting there chanting his rounds, and one of those paintings, a crude like stick figure of Krishna and Radha or whatever it was, he pasted on the seat in front of him in the plane, and he's chanting his rounds, reading that, looking at that painting. Because it was done with bhakti and it was given with devotion, you see. So that's the essence of whole here. So Krishna is now going to come out of this little section in which he's talking about Swadharma according to the modes you're in, and he's going to talk practically only about pure devotion now. Building up to Sarva Dharma Parityajya Mamekantidam. Just take shelter of me. Forget all these other dharmas, including the Swadharmas, right? Forget all the other dharmas. Surrender only unto me. I'll protect you from all sinful reactions. Do not fear. Okay, well, let's do one more. That's 49, right? I think we're on 49. Asakta buddhi sarvatra jitatma vigataspriha naishkarmya siddhim padamam sannyasen adhigacchati. One who is self-controlled and unattached and who disregards all material enjoyments can obtain, by practice of renunciation, the highest perfect stage of freedom from reaction. So remember the title of this chapter, The Perfection of Renunciation. So he's right on point now with this verse. Purport: real renunciation means that one should always think himself part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, and therefore think that he has no right to enjoy the results of his work. Since he is part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, the results of his work must be enjoyed by the Supreme Lord. This is actually Krishna consciousness. The person acting in Krishna consciousness is really a sannyasi, one in the renounced order of life. By such a mentality, one is satisfied because he is actually acting for the Supreme. Thus he is not attached to anything material. He becomes accustomed to not taking pleasure in anything beyond the transcendental happiness derived from the service of the Lord. A sannyasi is supposed to be free from the reactions of his past activities, but a person who is in Krishna consciousness automatically attains this perfection without even accepting the so-called order of renunciation. This state of mind is called yoga rudha, or the perfectional stage of yoga. As confirmed in the 3rd chapter, yastvatma rata eva syat. One who is satisfied in himself has no fear of any kind of reaction from his activity. And actually the rest of that verse says that he has no duty to perform. He has no reason not to perform it, but he also has no reason to perform any material duty. If he's actually in Krishna consciousness, his duties are coming from the imperative of whatever is necessary at the time to serve Krishna. So this idea, it's the principle is beautifully simple and kind of self-evident when you think about it. The basic principle of Krishna consciousness is to always think of Krishna and never forget him, right? There's a verse like that. Smarta vyaksatatam Vishnu vismartavyo najatuchit sarva vidi nishedaksyur eteyoreva kinkara. This is a verse exactly describing that. So always think of Vishnu or Krishna and never forget him. All other principles in devotional service are servants, humble servants of these two. The vidi and the sheda, the do's and the don'ts. Do think of Krishna. Don't forget him. Now I like to explain, when I first read this, I said, isn't this redundant? How is always thinking of Krishna any different from never forgetting him? But there is a slight difference. There's an important difference. Because when you think about sadhana bhakti, there are so many things that we do to help us remember Krishna, primarily chanting the holy name, right? Or reading Bhagavad Gita. That's a do. Do read Bhagavad Gita. Do chant the holy name and all these other do's. But there's also don'ts that help us not to forget Krishna. And like, don't associate with materialists. Don't engage in illicit sex and intoxication. Don't. So those things help you forget Krishna. You want to avoid them. And do all the things that help you remember Krishna. That's this thing. So now if one is always thinking of Krishna, and Krishna is all attractive, if you actually get absorbed in thinking of Krishna, your soul must be attracted, because he's all attractive. If you're not thinking of him, if you're thinking but you're not absorbed, then there's all kinds of static in there, and the attraction may be less. But really becoming absorbed in thinking of Krishna means you become attracted. And if you're attracted in the sense of, awakening your affection for Krishna, and when you really think about it, who could be a greater friend than Krishna? Suridam sarva bhutanam. Suridam, Prabhupada said, there's different levels of friendship, different words, just like in English. Bosom buddy, lifelong friend. Acquaintance is less intimate, right? So the bandhu and the mitra, that's different levels of friendship. But the surida is that friend who always has your best interest at heart, who is always ready to reach out and help you when you're in trouble. Always, In any material relationship, there's always a limit to how, I can do. You can stay here for 2 weeks, all right, 3 weeks, but that's it. You're welcome to stay. Come on and stay. You've been here for a month already. You know what I mean? There's always a limit to the material compassion. But there's no limit to Krishna's compassion. He stays with us in all situations. When we're in the hog body, the insect body, he's with us as super soul. Sudidam sarva bhutanam. Right? Giving us good instruction, and especially human form. He gives the Bhagavad Gita, he comes himself, he sends his emissaries, he comes as the deity form, he appears as the holy name. How is he not trying to reach out to us to give us a chance to be Krishna conscious? Now, understanding that, isn't that attractive? The most attractive thing of another person is how much they like you. If someone is very friendly to you, that automatically attracts you. Anyway, so if you're Krishna conscious, then you're attracted to Krishna. And if that means that you want to please him. You want to, just like if you love somebody, you want to please them. The mother wants to see that the child is healthy and happy and safe, and then she's happy. Not that she's looking for something back from the child other than that. So that's the best example in this material world of selfless love. So if one is thinking at every step and every breath, how is this, what am I doing now? Is it according to the program of the things that I need to do to please Krishna? Am I walking from here to there on a mission for, pleasing Krishna? Otherwise, okay, I just have a moment free. Okay, let me chant Hare Krishna. Let me glorify Krishna. Let me find someone who doesn't know about Krishna and give them Krishna. That's the level that Srila Prabhupada existed at. Every moment he was Krishna conscious, and he was doing things to express his love for Krishna. And that's absolute happiness. That's real happiness and freedom from fear. So that's what's mentioned here. Asakta buddhi sarvatra. And this is real renunciation. Think of vairagya, detachment, dispassion. That's the perfection. Not renunciation in the sense of tyag. Well, tyaga means literally giving something up. Those things which are harmful to our Krishna consciousness, we have to give up. You can't dovetail meat eating in Krishna consciousness. The only way you dovetail is by preaching against it. That's the way you use it. But other things, can be used materially or spiritually. How to use a car. A car is not inherently Maya. It can be used for Krishna service. Take out the chanting party or go on Sankirtan, or a million different things. So, how to arrange one's life in such a way that at every moment one is expressing in different ways, your love for Krishna. And then you're on a pure platform. All right, we will continue this Monday. And we are on text 50, that's page 692. And where is my trusty bookmark? And now, we will continue with the salvation of Lord Shiva. I think we're coming to the Krishna book. Chapter 88 of Krishna book. And we're almost finishing this Krishna book. We'll start over again soon. Okay. Now, do you remember? We were at the. There was a. What do you call it? When you when we're reciting something or you're seeing something and a cliffhanger. We don't know what happened. What happened so far in the plot before is that Lord Shiva had a worshipper. His name, it was a demon. A lot of the demons worship Shiva, such as Ravana and Vakasura. Vakasura is the one. So Vakasura means he cuts. He was cutting off different parts of his body and offering it into the fire. Very gruesome. And Shiva didn't want to have anything to do with him. But when he decided, well, if I can't have Shiva's darshan, I'm going to cut off my own head. So he took a bath and didn't dry, and he's ready to cut. And so Shiva said, okay. So he appears out of the fire and says, what do you want? I'll give you a benediction. Whatever you want. He says, oh, I want a benediction that whoever's head I touch will immediately explode. And she probably describes Shiva was sorry that he offered a benediction, but he had promised, so he gave him the benediction, and sure enough, he wanted to try it out on Shiva. So Shiva's running, and this Vakasura was going after him. So eventually they get to the Vaikuntha planet within this universe. That's the pole star Dhruvaloka. It's within the universe, but it's a Vaikuntha planet. And that Vaikuntha planet, Shiva was hiding, and then Vakasura comes, and he's kind of like tired because there's a lot of running. So Shiva disguises himself as a little brahmachari. Vishnu. He talked to Vakasura. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's read from the book. So we got to the part where Lord Shiva came and he just saved Vakasura from suicide. Lord Shiva's touch saved the demon from committing suicide. His bodily injuries immediately healed. Mystic power of Shiva. And his body became as it was before. Then Lord Shiva told the demon, my dear Vakasura, you do not need to cut off your head. You may ask for me any benediction you like, and I shall fulfill your desire. I do not know why you wanted to cut off your head to satisfy me. I become satisfied even by an offering of a little water. Actually, according to the Vedic process, the Shiva Linga in the temple, or the form of Lord Shiva in the temple, is worshipped simply by offering Ganges water, because it is said that Shiva is greatly satisfied when Ganges water is poured upon his head. Generally, devotees offer Ganges water and the leaves of the bilva tree, which are especially meant for offering to Shiva and Goddess Durga. The fruit of this tree is also offered to Shiva. Shiva assured Vakasura that he is satisfied by a very simple process of worship. Why then was he so eager to cut off his head? And why was he taking so much pain by cutting his body to pieces and offering it in the fire? There's no need for such severe penances. Anyway, out of compassion and sympathy, Lord Shiva prepared to give him any benediction he liked. So here's Shiva being very kind, and what happens with this Vakasura. When the demon was offered this facility by Shiva, he asked for a fearful and abominable benediction. The demon was very sinful, and sinful persons do not know what sort of benediction should be asked from the deity. Therefore he asked Lord Shiva to bless him with such power that as soon as he would touch anyone's head, it would immediately crack, and the man would die. The demons are described in the Gita as dushkritis, or miscreants. Kriti means very meritorious, but when du is added at the beginning, it means abominable. Instead of surrendering unto the Lord, the dushkritis worship different demigods to derive abominable material benefits. Although the dushkritis have brain power and merit, their merit and brain power are used for abominable activities. Sometimes, for example, materialistic science invent a lethal weapon. The scientific research for such an invention certainly requires a very great brain, but instead of inventing something beneficial to human society, they invent something to accelerate death, which is already assured to every man. They can't show their meritorious power by inventing something which can save man from death. Instead, they invent weapons which accelerate the process of death. Similarly, Vakasura, instead of asking Shiva for something beneficial, asked for something very dangerous. Shiva is powerful enough to give any benediction, so the demon could have asked something beneficial, but for his personal interest, he asked that anyone whose head would be touched by his hand would at once die. Shiva could not understand the motive of the demon, and he was very sorry that he had assured him whatever benediction he liked. He couldn't withdraw his promise, however, but he was very sorry in his heart that he was to offer him a benediction so dangerous. The devotees of the Lord never ask any benediction from Vishnu or Krishna. Even if they do ask something from the Lord, it's not at all dangerous for human society. While Shukadeva was narrating the history of Vakasura, he addressed King Parikshit as Bharata. referring to King Parikshit's birth in a family of devotees. Maharaj Parikshit was saved by Lord Krishna while in his mother's womb. Later he could have asked Lord Krishna to save him again from the curse of a Brahmin, but he did not do so. Alright, I'm sorry, I wasted the time at the beginning summarizing it, and we're going to have to wait until Monday to get to the answer, because they're going to blow that conch out pretty soon. So. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada's given all this wonderful purport. Krishna Padaya Krishna Pristaya Utale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine Krishna Padaya Krishna Pristaya Utale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Achacha Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasari Gaura Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasari Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Giridhara Radha, Giridhari Radhe. Jaya Radha, Giridhari Radha, Giridhari Radhe. Nitai Gora Hari Mo, Hari Mo, Hari Mo, Nitai Gora Hari Mo. Gopananda Paramahansa, Dravida Prabhu, Ashtotar, Shishima, Dravida Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki jai. ISKCON Bhagavad Bhagavadgita Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Paramahansa, Dravida Prabhu, Ashtotar, Shishima, Dravida Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava ki jai. Namansharana Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Premi Koshi Chaitanya Govindananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shyam Krishna Giri Govardhan ki jai. Vrindavan ki jai. Navadvip Mayapur Dham ki jai. Jagannath Puri Dham ki jai. Ganga Mahi ki jai. Yamuna Mahi ki jai. Tulsi Devi ki jai. Bhakti Devi ki jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai. President Bhakti Krishna ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki jai. All glory to the Son of the Bhagavad. All glory to the Son of the Bhagavad. All glory to the Son of the Bhagavad. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Namaste Narasimhaya. Namaste Narasimhaya. Lara Lara Hiranyakashipo Shilatakana Histon Shinga Tariston Shingo Yato Yato Yanitaton Shinga Bahir Shingo Ritaye Shingo Yasena Madhim Sharanam Prapajye Pamakara Kamalam Varena Kam Anta Shinga Varita Hiranakashipu Taram Bringa Keshavantita Narari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Jaya Nrsimhadev, 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 Jaya Nrsimhadev. Shri Bhagavan ki jai, Talar Maharaj ki jai, Gopananda. Oh, shoes, no shoes. Yeah, shoes. Hare Krishna. little prasadam now.
Isn't that for all